Safety looks different for everyone. Sharing a personal or traumatic story can be empowering for individuals with lived experience of violence and can assist in advocacy. However, survivors may feel extremely vulnerable knowing their story will be in the public eye. Ensure your interactions are respectful, sensitive, and transparent throughout the reporting process. Check your source has emotional supports in place and have a list of trusted, accessible services on hand to share with them.
It's really important to understand, what does respectful engagement look like? What does, working with survivors and keeping survivors safe whilst telling their story, entail, and how do we do this?
We understand the media industry as a business, but we won't have stories if we can't engage with people and the people don't trust us to share their stories. However you frame those stories, there will be a consequence for those people. And so it's thinking about the longevity of the story. I bring it back to ethics. What's the impact on the people that we're engaging with? We're reporting on violence and it's notoriously unsafe. Someone's been hurt in this process. But we have to be making sure that we're reporting on that in a way that's going to keep everybody safe. It's going to keep the victims safe, their families safe. It's going to keep the people that are reporting on it safe.
When survivors of violence tell their stories, it may be easy to identify them, particularly if they come from small communities or rural or regional areas. Consider what details you include about the incident and those involved. Seek legal advice and ensure that your reporting will not impact any legal proceedings.
I think one of the key differences is the heightened risk on the individual for negative repercussions, particularly in gaining work once their story is made public. So you just want to take the extra precaution to make sure that you have informed consent to talk about the individual's allegations. If you're going to name them, do whatever you can to ensure that individual gets legal advice.
I think it's also important to recognise that people from marginalised communities are often much less likely and less able to report or to be in a position to publicly speak out about workplace harassment. So if you're from a community where just having a job is extremely challenging, you're probably not going to want to, publicly speak out, or it's much more difficult for you to speak out and report harassment that's occurring.
Ensure you understand and communicate the personal risks and repercussions involved in speaking out.
Two questions that I ask every survivor who's anticipating telling their story is, what are their objectives and goals in speaking out, so that I understand what's important to them about sharing their story and that that's reflected in the final piece. And the second thing that I'll always ask is, what are any concerns that they have? And often then elicits that conversation about risks that they might be aware of that I may not be aware of. And then we can talk through those risks and whether or not it is safe to proceed, or what mechanisms we need to put in place to make it safer. I was interviewing a young woman who was speaking out about sexual harassment in a particular residential college attached to a university, and she said she had to cancel her 21st birthday, which was meant to be held on the weekend. And I asked her why, and she said, well, because everybody who I've invited goes to college and none of them are going to come, so I've just got to cancel my 21st. And I remember having this huge realisation moment. I knew it was going to be difficult for her socially after this. I had no idea. I didn't know it was her birthday. I didn't know it was her 21st. I didn't, so you start to go, wow, I haven't actually correctly understood what it is that I am asking of her and what it is that she is risking.
The best things that the conversation did, for example, was to turn the comments off. And for Indigenous authors, so that we as authors didn't have to engage it, but neither did community members have to go into bat for us when we were struggling to work out how do we respond to those comments.
Some communities find it difficult to trust the media due to a history of unfair and inaccurate reporting. Listen to their experiences and create a safe space to share their story.
When a journalist is talking to me and they actually acknowledge the disinformation and acknowledge the broader context in the conversation, and not just saying, oh, this could have consequences for you, but saying, We're aware that all reporting on this could cause harm. We're aware that the media has had a fraught history in this space, and we want to make sure we get this one right. We've got these guidelines, but we'd love to hear from you, not just on the content, but on how to approach this. That, to me, I've had one journalist speak to me that way, and it was I was ready to say no, and then I was turned around in the course of the conversation because I'd been burnt so many times, and my colleagues had as well.
Stay in communication, particularly if there are changes to content or editorial approaches.
There is no way that we can ever foresee, every single risk that a survivor is going to face, and that might actually be part of the conversation that you have with them ahead of time as well. I think it also means that your responsibility to that survivor doesn't end when the article or the story's gone to air. You might need to actually check in and provide some ongoing support and assistance to them.
Some of the really good things is, really important. Should be every best practice is making sure a survivor sees a draft, making sure the survivor knows when this is going to air. If you don't know that it's, I get that things get pulled at the last second, but be ready to manage that, work with that person around, feeling anxious. Because there is a lot of anxiety involved in telling your story. So knowing the day that it's going to air, knowing what's going to air is very critical. And being ready to sit with that survivor if all of a sudden the story gets pulled on that day and it's going to then air the next day. So, really, managing those expectations of what is happening when, so that we can manage our emotions around that, because it is very emotional and it's an emotional roller coaster that we're on, telling our story. So the best and the most information and the most informed you can support somebody with all of these bits and pieces, the better their experience is going to be engaging with journalists, and the better positioned they are to be ready for when that story goes live as well.
There is no one normal way to feel after a story comes out. Some people feel completely numb, some people feel completely high. Any response is normal, but I have seen that, exactly as you say, that curve a lot. So part of it is checking in with that person during that curve, but part of it is also preparing them for that curve. So if they do suddenly have these high elated feelings or complete numbness, they go, oh, I was told about this. I'm not abnormal. This is part of the journey and I will be okay.
Working with survivors and hearing their stories can lead to vicarious trauma for reporters. Make sure you seek help when needed to support yourself and your colleagues. For more information on ensuring survivor safety, visit ourwatch.org.au.